My name is Elena Crossley, and I'm 31 years old. Competence doesn't shout, it hums. My dishwasher flips to off-peak at 12:01 a.m. because I programmed it once and never had to think about it again. My budget spreadsheet ends each month with every cell soft green instead of angry red. I go to Mass on Sundays, say grace before dinner when I remember, and kiss the tiny silver crucifix above my bed when life feels heavier than usual. None of that is glamorous. No one throws a parade for woman who pays bills on time and calls her grandmother. You only notice competence when it fails. Dylan used to say that's what he loved about me. We'd been together 3 years, engaged for 8 months, wedding in 6. He was 29, charming in a slightly chaotic way, always a little late, always with a new idea, always promising this next thing would finally change everything. I'm Catholic, not the kind who quotes scripture at strangers, just the kind who grew up in pews and hospital waiting rooms with rosaries in wrinkled hands. My grandmother Rose pressed hers into my palm before she died 6 years ago. "Keep praying, Lena," she'd whispered. "This brought me through more than you'll ever know." I keep that rosary on my nightstand in a small velvet pouch. It's the closest thing I own to sacred. When Dylan and I got engaged, religion wasn't an issue. He'd grown up vaguely Christian, as he put it, but never really practiced. "I actually like that you have faith," he told me once, tracing the cross at my throat with his thumb. "It's grounding, like you." Then 2 months ago, he started going to a meditation center near his office. "It's just mindfulness stuff," he said, dropping onto the couch with a stack of books. "Breathwork, compassion, that kind of thing. They incorporate a lot of Buddhist philosophy. It's really helping my anxiety." I'd nodded, genuinely glad. "If it helps you, that's good. You should have something that anchors you." "You should come with me sometime," he added. "You'd love it." I gave a polite half smile. "Maybe. I've kind of already got my own spiritual routine, you know?" "At least read this," he insisted, pressing a paperback into my hands. "It explains how Buddhism isn't really a religion. It's more a way of life. You can totally be Catholic and Buddhist at the same time." "Dylan," I said gently, "I'm happy you found something that works. I'm good with what I have." He shrugged, let it drop. For about 2 weeks, everything was fine. Then it wasn't. It started with little comments. "Why are you so closed-minded about trying one meditation class? You talk about peace all the time at church. This literally is peace. You're not even willing to learn. That's kind of narrow, don't you think?" I told myself he was just enthusiastic, newly in love with an idea the way people get with diet fads or podcasts. I figured it would level out. Then one night, we were having pasta at my kitchen table, wedding spreadsheets open on my laptop, when he set his fork down and looked at me with this new, unnervingly serene expression. "I've been thinking a lot," he said. "If we're going to build a real life together, we need to be on the same spiritual path." My stomach tensed. "What does that mean exactly?" "I want us to convert to Buddhism together," Dylan said. "Not just dabble, commit. The wedding should be a fresh start for both of us." I actually stopped mid-bite. "I'm not converting," I said. "I'm Catholic. You knew that from day one." That was before I found this. His eyes were bright, almost feverish. "This is who I really am now, and I want you with me." "You can practice Buddhism," I said, keeping my voice even. "I'll practice Catholicism. Couples do that all the time. Different faiths, same life." His face tightened. "So that's a no." "I'm saying I'm not leaving my faith," I replied. "You are free to practice yours." He leaned back, eyes cooling. "Then maybe we need to rethink this whole wedding." I felt the room tilt. "You're threatening to cancel our wedding because I won't convert?" "I'm saying maybe we're not compatible if you can't grow with me spiritually." "This isn't about growth, Dylan. You're asking me to abandon my faith." He pushed his chair back. "Just think about it," he said. "If you can't do this for us, maybe we shouldn't be getting married at all." He went to the bedroom. I sat there staring at his unfinished plate, my appetite gone, trying to figure out when my fiancé turned into a man who would treat my faith like an inconvenience. The next few days were tight and brittle. We moved around each other like glass. He didn't bring it up again, and I let myself imagine he'd realized how insane the ultimatum was. I was wrong. I came home from work the following Tuesday and knew something was off before I even dropped my keys. The apartment felt stripped. The crucifix that had hung in the living room for years was gone. The tiny statue of Mary my mom gave me when I moved out, gone. The framed picture of Pope John Paul II my grandmother insisted I hang for blessing, gone. My heart started pounding. "Dylan," I called. "In here," he answered too casually. He was in the kitchen, stirring a pot of tea like nothing had changed. "Where's my stuff?" I demanded. He glanced at me. "I put it away. It was cluttering the energy in here. We need better flow if we're going to meditate." "Put it where?" "In storage boxes in the closet." He waved a hand. "Relax. It's all safe." I walked past him to the hall closet and found 2 cardboard boxes. My religious things were tossed in like junk from a yard sale. The crucifix from above my bed had a new chip in the wood. "You broke this," I said, my voice flat. "It's just wood, Elena." "It's blessed," I snapped. "It means something to me." "If your faith is real, you don't need objects to prove it," he said. "You're attached to symbols. I'm helping you detach." I carried every piece back out and returned them to where they belonged, my hands shaking. Dylan watched me, annoyance flickering over his face, but didn't push it further. That should have been the end. Instead, it was the warning shot. 2 days later, I had an early meeting and got home around 4. The apartment looked empty. Not just tidy, empty. The crucifix in the living room, gone. The Mary statue, gone. The small framed icon from my grandmother's nightstand that I'd kept, gone. The boxes in the closet, also gone. My chest went cold. "Dylan," I called, my voice already tight. He was sitting cross-legged on the balcony, eyes closed, headphones in, the picture of peace. I slid the door open. "Where is everything?" He opened one eye lazily. "Where's what?" "My religious items," I said. "They're not in the closet." "I got rid of them," he said. Straight, casual. "We don't need that energy here." "You what?" "I donated most of it," he replied. "Some broken stuff I tossed. Why does it matter? They're gone. Trust me, this is for the best." I didn't hear whatever he said next because there was a roaring in my ears. I grabbed the keys again, flew down 3 flights of stairs, pushed out into the alley behind the building where the dumpsters sat under a dull gray sky. The smell hit me first. Coffee grounds, rotten food, something sour and chemical. I didn't care. I hauled open the first lid and started digging. Bag after bag, my breath coming short and shallow. I found our trash bag by the grocery store logo on the side, ripped it open with hands that would be sore hours later. There it was. The velvet pouch, dark and wet, half buried under banana peels and soaked paper towels. My grandmother's rosary spilled out into my palm, slick with old coffee, a smear of tomato sauce catching the light on one of the beads. The metal crucifix at the end was scratched, but intact. For a second, the alley blurred, and I was back in that hospice room, Nana Rose's papery hand squeezing mine, her rosary between us. "Don't let anyone make you small," she'd whispered. "Not for love, not for anything." I stood there by the dumpster shaking, tears mixing with the cold air and the rank smell, wiping each bead with the edge of my shirt like I could scrub the violation off. By the time I went back upstairs, something inside me had snapped into place. Dylan was in the living room now, scrolling his phone, a kettle whining softly behind him. "My grandmother's rosary," I said, holding it up, "was in the trash." He blinked. "Oh, I must have missed that when I was sorting donations." "You threw away my dead grandmother's rosary." "It was an accident," he said, already defensive. "You're being so dramatic." "Get out," I said. He froze. "What?" "Get out of my apartment," I repeated, "right now." "You can't kick me out. I live here." "You're not on the lease," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears, flat and cold. "You've been staying here. Now you're leaving." "You're doing this over some objects," he scoffed. I held up the rosary. "You threw away something irreplaceable that belonged to my dead grandmother because you decided your new thing means I can't practice my own faith." "Yeah," I said. "I'm doing this." "We have a wedding in 6 months," he said, voice rising. "We sent save the dates. We have deposits." "There's no wedding," I said. "We're done." "You're breaking up with me because I'm trying to help you evolve?" "I'm breaking up with you because you crossed the one line you don't cross," I answered. "You disrespected my boundaries, my faith, and my family. Pack a bag and get out." He tried everything then. Soft voice, tears, anger, bargaining. "You're throwing away 3 years over nothing. You're attached to material things. You're scared of growth." I walked to the bedroom, pulled out his duffel, started tossing clothes into it. At some point, he realized I meant it. His voice went quiet, almost eerie. "You'll regret this," he said, standing in the doorway. "You're having some kind of religious meltdown. Everyone will see that." "Maybe," I said, "but I'd rather regret leaving than regret staying." He left with his duffel and his laptop. The door shut behind him with a soft click that sounded like a chapter closing. The apartment was suddenly too quiet. I washed the rosary gently in the sink, bead by bead, until the water ran clear. Then I sat on the couch, the rosary coiled in my hand, the late afternoon light slanting across the floor. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Dylan's name lit the screen. Then another unknown number. Then another. Apologies, explanations, accusations. I placed the phone face down. In my palm, the rosary beads were cool and familiar. For the first time in days, my breathing slowed. I didn't know yet how messy things were about to get. Lawyers and deposits and courtrooms and new age girlfriends from meditation class. All I knew in that moment was this: some things you don't come back from. And I wasn't going to rebuild a bridge someone else had burned. The first night after I ended it with Dylan, I slept with the rosary in my hand like a child with a nightlight. Every time my phone buzzed, my grip tightened. The messages started soft. Elena, I'm so sorry. I didn't think. I'll replace everything, I promise. Please don't throw us away over a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding. I set the phone to do not disturb, placed it face down on my dresser, and went to work the next morning with puffy eyes and an extra layer of concealer. By day 3, the tone shifted. You're choosing objects over our relationship. This is unhealthy. My therapist says you're having a spiritual crisis and projecting it on me. I didn't believe he had a therapist for a second, but the phrase stuck under my skin. Spiritual crisis. The crisis, as far as I could tell, was that Dylan wanted my soul to match his new aesthetic. On day 5, I went to my building manager, Mr. Walsh, with coffee and a tight smile. I need to change my locks, I said. My ex had a key. He's not on the lease. Mr. Walsh adjusted his glasses, looked at the computer, then nodded. No problem, Ms. Crossley. I'll have maintenance swap them this afternoon just to confirm he's never been added to the lease. Never, I said. Then you're fine, he replied. Legally, this is your unit. I exhaled, tension I didn't know I was holding easing slightly. When the new lock clicked that evening, it felt like my heartbeat finally synced with my body. That peace lasted exactly 12 hours. The next day at lunch, my phone rang with an unfamiliar number. I answered out of reflex, expecting a client. Is this Elena? A woman's voice snapped, sharp and already annoyed. Yes? This is Renee, Dylan's mother, she announced like a police badge. We need to talk about what you're doing to my son. Of course. I pinched the bridge of my nose. I'm at work, I said. This isn't a good... I don't care if you're at the White House, she cut in. You need to stop being ridiculous and work this out with him. You don't throw away an engagement over some trinkets. Some trinkets. She threw away my grandmother's rosary, I said, my voice coming out tighter than I intended. She made a mistake, Renee shot back. She thought it was junk. You're blowing this out of proportion. You Crossleys are all so rigid about your religion. If you'd been more flexible, none of this would have happened. Or, I said slowly, maybe if your son respected boundaries, this wouldn't have happened. There was a sharp inhale. You know what? I tried. When you calm down and come to your senses, maybe... I hung up. 5 minutes later, another unknown number lit my phone. I let it go to voicemail. The transcript popped up. This is Chloe, Dylan's sister said, her voice oddly cheerful around the edges of insult. Just so you know, you're being extremely manipulative. Using religion to abuse my brother? Classic. You're controlling, and everyone can see it. Block, block, block. That night, I had dinner at my parents' house. My mom, Teresa, listened with her hands wrapped around her mug of tea, knuckles white. She threw away Mama Rose's rosary, she repeated, like she still couldn't fully believe it. That girl is out of her mind. You did the right thing, Lena. I don't care if you never get married. You don't stay with someone who spits on your family. My dad, Martin, was quieter, but his jaw was set. You don't compromise on respect, he said simply. Not for a man, not for a wedding, not for anything. My older brother, Ethan, tried to lighten the mood, bumping my shoulder. On the bright side, canceling a wedding has to burn more calories than any gym class, he joked. We'll call it emotional CrossFit. I laughed, but it caught in my throat. The next day, I got a call from an unfamiliar number. Hi, is this Elena Crossley? A polished voice asked. This is Laurel from Willow Ridge Events. I'm so sorry to bother you, but we just spoke with your fiancé, Dylan. He told us there's been a misunderstanding and that the wedding is absolutely still on. We just wanted to confirm since you're listed as the primary contact. For a second, I just stared at the beige office wall. No, I said. There's no misunderstanding. The wedding is canceled. We're no longer together. Laurel's tone softened. I'm sorry to hear that. I'll process the cancellation on our end. Unfortunately, as noted in your contract, the $2,500 deposit is non-refundable. I know, I said quietly. We'd split it, so I'm out $1,250. I wish I could do more, she said. You'd be surprised how often this happens. I hung up and opened my wedding spreadsheet. My cursor hovered over the tab labeled Wedding Final. I right-clicked and renamed it Wedding Canceled. 2 hours later, my phone buzzed with a Venmo notification. Dylan Hart requests 1,250 note, since you're the one canceling. I stared at the smiley face for a full 5 seconds, then hit decline. 10 minutes later, another request. Wedding costs, your decision. Decline. Block. An hour after that, I got a text from Dylan. You're being incredibly unfair. I already paid for my suit, the rehearsal dinner deposit, my meditation retreat that was supposed to help me be calmer for you. You owe me for emotional distress and half of all cancellation fees. I tossed my phone onto the couch, grabbed my laptop, and called someone I hadn't talked to in months. Hey, stranger, Jason Lee answered. We'd gone to college together. He'd gone to law school. I'd gone into logistics. This better not be because you got a parking ticket. I wish, I said, and told him everything. The conversion demand, the thrown-out rosary, the breakup, the calls, the wedding venue, the Venmo guilt trips. When I finished, he was quiet for a beat. That's messed up, he said. The rosary thing especially. I keep asking myself if I'm overreacting, I admitted. If I'm being petty. You're not, Jason said firmly. And he has no legal right to your apartment or your money. You two never put anything in both your names, right? No joint lease? No joint bank account? No, I said. Only a joint savings account for the wedding, but we already emptied it to pay vendors. It's at zero. Then the only thing he might try to hold hostage is the ring, Jason said. You still have it? I glanced at the jewelry box on my dresser, where the engagement ring sat in its velvet slot. Technically, no, I said. He does. I took it off and gave it to him the night I ended things. I didn't want it in my house. Jason swore softly. Okay, listen carefully. In our state, an engagement ring is considered a conditional gift. The condition is marriage. Marriage doesn't happen. Ring goes back to the giver. If he refuses to return it, you can take him to small claims court. Court? I repeated, my stomach flipping. Hopefully we don't have to go there, he said. But I want you to be prepared. He sounds like the type who will dig his heels in, especially now that he's got an entire peanut gallery calling you the villain. I closed my eyes. I could already hear Renee calling her bridge club. What if I just let him keep it? I murmured, half to myself. Elena, Jason said, his tone gentler. Didn't you say the diamond in that ring was your grandmother's? I swallowed. Yeah, we reset it in a new band. Then no, he said. You don't just let him keep it. That stone belongs in your family, not in some guy's post-breakup pity trophy. After we hung up, I sat in my silent apartment, the weight of it all pressing down. I opened my prayer app out of habit, then closed it and just picked up the rosary. I hadn't been to confession in months. I went that Saturday. The church smelled like old wood and candle smoke. I slid into the confessional, heart pounding harder than it should have. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned, I began, voice shaking. It's been 8 months since my last confession. The screen on the other side creaked as Father Michael Russo shifted. Welcome back, Elena, he said softly. He'd baptized my godson, buried my grandfather, given me advice when I thought about moving out of state. What's on your heart? I told him everything, not the legal pieces, but the human ones. The pressure to convert, the gaslighting, the rosary in the trash, the furious family, the way part of me still felt like I was the one causing harm by refusing to grow. I don't know how to forgive someone without letting them walk all over me, I admitted. I don't know where the line is. There was a pause. Forgiveness is not the same as access, Father Michael said finally. You can forgive someone and still keep a very firm door closed. What Dylan is doing, this doesn't come from love or concern. It comes from a need to control. Be very careful about believing the story he and his family are telling about you. My throat tightened. What if other people believe it? Other people's confusion does not change the truth, he said. You know what happened. God knows what happened. Your grandmother knows what happened. My eyes burned. She would be proud of you for protecting what she gave you, he added. Both the rosary and your dignity. On the way home, I felt strangely lighter and heavier at the same time. That night, I lay in bed, the rosary on my nightstand, the empty space above my dresser where my wedding binder used to sit now occupied by a stack of novels. My phone buzzed with a group text, old friends wanting to know what really happened with the wedding. Someone mentioned Dylan's new spiritual journey, how enlightened he seemed on Instagram. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my photo app and pulled up a picture I'd taken months ago, my hand in Dylan's, the engagement ring catching afternoon light. My grandmother's diamond, her story, perched in a setting that now felt like a costume. Jason's words echoed in my head. That stone belongs in your family. I zoomed in on the ring until the rest of the photo blurred. The rosary on my nightstand glinted softly in the lamplight. I had reclaimed my apartment, my faith, my boundaries. But one piece of my grandmother was still in his hands. I realized, with a clarity that made my chest ache, that this wasn't over, not yet. The next battle wouldn't be about religion or meditation or even the wedding. It would be about the ring. And I wasn't going to back down. The ring issue blew up faster than I expected, like lighting a match near a gas leak I didn't know was there. Jason drafted the demand letter first. To Dylan Hart. Return of conditional gift, engagement ring. It was clinical and clean, with phrases like per state statute and failure to comply will result in legal action. I almost felt bad when we sent it. Almost. Dylan replied within an hour. You're unbelievable. You dumped me for no reason and now you think you can take back a gift? Grow up. I didn't respond. Jason told me not to. The next day I got an email. Not from Dylan, but from a law office. Hart Family Legal Representation. Of course. The letter claimed, I ended the engagement without cause. The ring was a gift Dylan was entitled to keep. My religious rigidity caused him emotional distress. If I pursued legal action, they would countersue for emotional damages and wedding costs. Jason read the letter and actually laughed. They can't countersue for hurt feelings, he said. This is a bluff with a coat of legal paint. Still, my stomach twisted. Dylan was escalating, and he wasn't alone. The following Saturday morning, I was brushing my teeth when the doorman called. Ms. Crossley? Dylan Hart is here asking to be let up. My toothbrush froze midair. Do not let him up, I said. He doesn't live here. He's insisting he does, the doorman said. He says you're holding his belongings hostage. I closed my eyes and inhaled slowly. Please tell him that any belongings he left here will be available for pickup next Saturday from 10 to 2. And if he doesn't leave the building, call the police. Understood, ma'am. I hung up, hands shaking. 30 minutes later, 2 police officers were at my door anyway. Ma'am, one said gently, we got a report of a domestic dispute and property theft. Of course he called them. I explained everything, showed them the lease with only my name, the text offering him specific times to pick up his things, the breakup date. The officers exchanged a look. This is a civil matter, the older one said. We can't force you to hand anything over right now. If he wants to retrieve property, he needs to coordinate with you. Or file a civil claim, the younger one added, which he hasn't. They apologized for the interruption and left. I locked the door behind them, heart pounding in my throat. When I checked my phone later, there were 9 missed calls from Dylan. You made me look insane in front of the cops. You're punishing me. You're sick. I want my ring and my things. You owe me. I put the phone on silent and moved his boxes to the doorman's desk a full week early. 3 cardboard boxes labeled Dylan H. Pickup. I wanted nothing of his in my home. When Jason filed the small claims case for the ring, mutual friends found out. The reactions were mixed. My friend Kelly texted, Isn't this a bit much? Just let him keep it. It's just a ring. I stared at the message before replying. It's my grandmother's diamond. Kelly responded with a single, Oh, and then nothing. Others weren't so subtle. Mike, honestly, Elena, this seems petty. You ended things. Just move on. Ashley, suing your ex? That's dramatic. I blocked more people that week than I had in the last decade. It was astonishing how quickly people called a woman dramatic the moment she enforced a boundary. Meanwhile, Dylan's Instagram became a highlight reel of spiritual awakenings, meditation retreats, and quotes about rising above negativity. Every caption was a passive-aggressive haiku. One post showed him with a woman from the meditation center, Maya. I recognized her from one of the photos he'd shown me weeks before. He captioned it, When the universe sends someone aligned with your new path. I didn't feel jealousy. I felt concern for her. In the middle of all this, church became my refuge. I volunteered to help with confirmation classes, staying after Mass to stack chairs or help teens memorize prayers they only half cared about. I liked the quiet work of it, the stability, the simple goodness. One afternoon, as I wiped down tables, Father Michael approached. You seem lighter, he observed. I'm trying, I said. Therapy helps too. He smiled warmly. Grief and healing often walk together. I nodded, but didn't tell him the truth. Part of me was terrified of the upcoming court date. Terrified of facing Dylan again. Terrified of hearing him lie. And most terrifying of all, terrified that on some level I still needed closure from a man who had already proven he would never give it. Court day. The courtroom was cold, with humming fluorescent lights and mismatched chairs. Jason sat beside me, calm and unbothered in his navy suit. "You're going to be fine," he said. "Judges see through theatrics. Just tell the truth." Across the aisle sat Dylan, flanked by his parents and their attorney, a short, furious man wearing a tie patterned with tiny anchors. Dylan wouldn't look at me. His mother did, though, with a venomous glare that could have curdled milk. When our case was called, the judge, a worn-down woman with silver hair pulled into a bun, looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. Jason went first. "Your Honor, this is straightforward. The engagement ended, therefore the ring, a conditional gift, must be returned to my client." Then Dylan's lawyer launched into a dramatic monologue. "Elena cruelly abandoned Dylan without cause," he declared. "Her sudden emotional instability caused him profound distress. The ring was a gift representing their time together. To strip him of that now is, frankly, vindictive." The judge looked bored. Then she turned to Dylan. "Why did the engagement end?" Dylan looked down, then up with perfectly timed tears. "She demanded I convert to Catholicism," he said softly. "She said we couldn't be married unless I abandoned Buddhism. When I said no, she threw me out." My jaw clenched. The judge turned to me. "Ms. Crossley?" "Your Honor," I said, steadying my voice, "I never asked him to convert. Ever. What happened is that Dylan demanded I convert to Buddhism. When I refused, he began removing my religious items from my apartment without my permission." "Is that true?" the judge asked Dylan. He licked his lips. "I was cleansing the space for meditation." "Did you throw away any of her items?" she pressed. He hesitated. "I discarded some things accidentally." Jason held up a printed photo of the Rosary, cleaned, but the stains still visible. "The item he threw away belonged to Ms. Crossley's deceased grandmother," he said. "It was found in their apartment dumpster." The judge's eyebrows shot up. "You threw away her grandmother's rosary?" "It wasn't intentional," Dylan snapped. "She's exaggerating." The judge raised her hand. "Enough." She flipped through the paperwork, then looked up. "State law is very clear," she said. "An engagement ring is a conditional gift. The condition was marriage. The marriage did not occur. Therefore, the ring must be returned." Dylan's lawyer sputtered. "Your Honor!" "Counselor," she said sharply, "your client admitted to disposing of Ms. Crossley's personal property and provided no evidence. She ended the engagement without cause. You have 7 days to return the ring, or I will issue a court order for its full monetary value plus court fees." Dylan's face collapsed. His mother gasped, like someone had slapped her. Jason smiled faintly. I exhaled for the first time in weeks. Outside the courthouse, Dylan's parents pounced. "You'll regret this," Renee snapped. "You've humiliated him. You're cruel." I walked past them without slowing down. Jason clapped my shoulder. "You did good, Elena." I felt hollow, but steady. 3 days later, a padded envelope appeared in my mailbox. No note. Inside was the engagement ring. Cold, silent, final. I stared at it for a long time, not with sadness, with clarity. This wasn't the symbol of a broken relationship. It was the symbol of what I'd reclaimed. My grandmother's diamond was coming home. The ring sat on my kitchen table like a ghost of a future that never arrived. When I picked it up, it felt heavier than it ever had on my finger, like all the weight I'd carried for 3 years had settled into the metal band. I turned it over in my hand, the diamond catching the afternoon light. My grandmother's diamond. Not his, not ours, mine, my family's. I wrapped it in a soft cloth and drove straight to Bramhall Jewelers, the same place Dylan and I had chosen the setting months earlier. When the owner, Mr. Bramhall, saw me, he offered a warm but cautious smile. "No fiancé today?" "Ex-fiancé," I corrected gently. His eyes flickered with sympathy. "Ah, how can I help?" I placed the ring on the velvet mat. I'd like the diamond removed, reset into a pendant. Simple gold chain. He adjusted his glasses, examining the ring. "Beautiful stone. It will make a lovely necklace. Very meaningful, I imagine." I nodded. It belonged to my grandmother. Something softened in his expression. "Then let's take care of it." While he wrote up the order, he said, "We can also buy back the setting if you'd like. Won't fetch quite what you paid, but..." "Yes," I said immediately. "Sell it. Let Dylan keep his yoga mats and his enlightenment quotes. I kept the diamond." The ring setting sold for $800, which felt like poetic symmetry. Losing money on the wedding, gaining something back from its ashes. That evening, my apartment felt different. Not just because his boxes were gone or the locks were changed. It was the air, the stillness, the privacy of my own peace. I rearranged furniture, moved the couch, swapped the painting above the TV, threw out throw pillows Dylan had insisted were feng shui optimized. Then I hung a new crucifix above my bed, bigger than the old one, darker wood, heavier in my hands when I held it up to the wall. It felt like placing a stake in the ground. On my nightstand, I placed my grandmother's rosary inside a wooden box my mom had given me. The lid fit with a soft click. Safe, respected, exactly where it belonged. Sunday morning, I went to Mass. Not out of obligation, out of gratitude. Afterward, I stayed to help with the confirmation kids. They were chaotic, awkward, loud, and full of half-hearted attempts to memorize prayer lines. "Miss Elena," one girl asked, "is forgiving someone the same thing as being friends with them again?" I froze, out of the mouths of children. "No," I said. "Forgiving someone means you don't wish them harm. It doesn't mean you let them keep hurting you." The girl nodded thoughtfully. "Okay, that makes sense." When I glanced across the room, I saw Father Michael watching me with a small, approving smile. A week later, the pendant was ready. I picked it up, held it to the light. It wasn't flashy or dramatic. Just a simple gold chain with the diamond nestled in a minimalist setting. Elegant. Quiet. It was perfect. I saved it for Christmas. On Christmas Eve, I went to my parents' house. Snow wasn't common in our city, but a soft frost had coated the lawns, catching the streetlights like glitter. After dinner, I handed my mom a small box. "What's this?" she asked, surprised. "We said no gifts this year." "You'll want this one," I said. She opened the lid and inhaled sharply. "Oh," she whispered. "Oh, Elena." Her eyes glistened as she lifted the necklace, the diamond catching the warm light. "Mama would love this," she said, her voice thick. "And she'd be so proud of how you handled everything, sweetheart. So proud." That made my chest tighten in a way nothing else had. More than the court win, more than the ring arriving in the mail. Being seen, being understood, being told I had done right by my family. That was worth everything. She fastened the pendant around her neck, her fingers trembling slightly. "It's like having her with us again," she said. I leaned my head against her shoulder. "That's why I wanted you to have it." After New Year's Mass, I went home, made tea, and curled up on the couch with a blanket and a book. The rosary box sat next to a candle, warm light flickering across its lid. It felt like closure. Then my phone buzzed from an unfamiliar number. Of course, I should have blocked it without reading. But I didn't. Not yet. "I hope you're happy. You destroyed everything we built. You ruined my life. You didn't have to drag this into court. You turned into someone hateful." There was no apology, no accountability, just projection and blame. I typed back one final message. "I didn't destroy anything. You did that the moment you threw my grandmother's rosary into the trash. Have a good life, Dylan." Then I blocked the number. Permanently. No more windows left open for him to climb through. The next morning, sunlight warmed the living room. The houseplants looked greener. The air felt clearer. My home, my life, felt like mine again. No more wedding deadlines. No more spiritual ultimatums. No more walking on emotional glass. I wasn't angry anymore, just done. The rosary was clean, safe, and resting in its wooden box. The pendant sparkled at my mother's neck. And I was learning something my grandmother had once told me, but I hadn't understood until now. Sometimes the holiest thing you can do is walk away.